everyone, and welcome back to another World Explorer podcast. I'm Casey, and this is Isaac, and this is the podcast where we build worlds out of a random prompt, usually provided by Isaac.
Hey Casey, I know what we're gonna do today.
Was that like...
I was watching Phineas and Ferb recently.
That's Phineas and Ferb, okay. Just wanted to confirm.
I was watching Phineas and Ferb, and it was an episode that I had never seen before, because I don't think it was actually ever on Netflix when I was watching it on Netflix, but it's on Disney Plus. And there was these giant ice statues of animals, and they were breathing fire. And so I was thinking, oh, that's a really cool concept. What if we were to have a world where we had like elemental creatures or people, and those creatures or people it had the ability to use an element that is their weakness. For example, ice people shooting fire, or plants. Well, I guess plant is also fire. Rock people use shooting plants or growing plants.
Okay, plants is not one of the four elements.
Well, I mean, you can get elemental with a lot more.
Okay, so we're doing the expanded elements.
The expanded elements. So this includes wind and sand and clouds and dirt.
Ice, no. Dirt.
Yeah, ice.
I would hate to be the dirt one. I mean, I guess there's worse ones than a dirt one. What's a worse than a dirt? You get stuck out being
the whale poo element.
That's not one, and we're not making it one. Vetoed instantly. We could think of some bad ones, but... So, are we talking like Ninjago level then? Where we have like lightning?
I have not seen Ninjago.
Well, there's
so
like
maybe.
lightning and shapeshifting. No, those aren't elements, but you know, they got a whole variety.
Yeah, lightning. We can have lightning in there.
Yeah. They got a lot of varieties from there. I'm trying to think. There was another... The only other example I could think of is my YouTube survival series, where all the fairies have different elements, and like I'm a night fairy, and then we've got a forest and a stone.
We could have like night and day elements.
Yeah. Or like, I guess sun, moon.
But
stars.
Okay, so we got our elemental things. Do we want to have it where it's like you are sort of an element, but then you use the opposite of your element, or do we want to have it? Do you just want to build our own unique elemental system?
I mean, I like the opposite idea, and I think that is in itself a unique elemental system. The thing is, do we want ones where, like, so going back to the ice and fire, where you have the fire elemental shooting ice, does that mean there's an ice elemental that shoots fire? Or do we want only one variant?
I mean, I think that one variant would be more interesting.
Yeah, I think the two elements combine in one way, and that's it.
Yeah, like there is no fire element shooting ice or anything else. No fire element shooting water.
Which I think is a good thing, because it means we can pick a solid element like earth or ice and have it reflect or produce a non-solid element, like the earth elemental would produce wind. The ice elemental produces fire, and then you could have I don't know, like a lava element that shoots water. So the lava's kind of like molten rock. And
I was trying to think what would be the opposite of water at that point.
I think it'd be like a molten,
lava would work.
Yeah, or almost like an obsidian golem that shoots water. Something like that. He's just really hot all the time, but it shoots water, and it's not steam. Don't ask how that works.
Boiling water.
True. We could shoot boiling water. That'd be painful.
Okay, so are we going to be world building with people using the elements, or are we making different magical creatures? We could make more magical creatures similar to how we did before with our unique fantasy world.
Does that? Yeah, I kind of like that idea. Having like, let's build some more societies, because society building's fun.
Okay.
We could pick
So
one and then just go through and see how many we get done in an hour or under
okay,
an
so
hour.
I liked the Obsidian golem thing. However, it should probably. What if it's like a combination of obsidian with like lava flowing around it?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. The
obsidian could
obsidian
kind
keeps
of
it
maybe form a
solid.
frame,
Yeah,
but there's still a lot of lava outside of it.
I
And
think
then it could shoot water.
now I'm under the impression that these guys are island dwellers. They have an island, kind of like a volcano produces islands and stuff. I feel like they would have an island that's surrounded by water. That
And
just
it's probably a lot of rock and dirt because I imagine everything there would be on fire if they lived there.
well, the thing is, the beauty, the reason why we like volcanic islands so well is because their soil is super rich in nutrients and is really good for farming. So I almost think that these lava creatures that shoot water would be the perfect farmers. Because for one, they can keep their plants watered really easily. Like they just sit there and go, "Psh, oh look, they're watered." Like if they could control their temperature a bit and not burn the plants, so they never have to worry about droughts.
Well, even boiling water is safe to put on plants. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people think it's not. No, boiling water works just as fine. Just
Yeah,
as
in
well
which case
as
this is
any
even
other
better.
water.
It works for them. And then whenever their soil runs out of nutrients, they can produce more really easily. Like just their own body is like rich soil producers. So, some people just they prop this sounds morbid, but they bury their dead in the farmlands. And that's
So
why they're
their
so
dead become fertilizer.
yes, it's the circle of life, and then that allows it's an honor. It's an honor to become fertilizer.
Yeah. I think that this would be the sort of thing where it is more of a, like you said, an honor thing where this is just a normal thing for their society. Like in one society, this might be seen as just a horrible, disrespectful. How
Like
could
us,
you possibly?
our society.
Like you treat your dead like fertilizer. That is just awful. That's like the level of our cow dung.
Yeah.
Well, this society's like, no, it is the circle of life. It is a beautiful thing to become fertilizer.
Also, we are the best fertilizer, and they're very
Yeah.
proud of this. This is not. They are proud that they are great fertilizer.
Now the question is, do they eat? Like, do they eat the plants?
I mean, the plants have to have a purpose, but I guess the purpose could always be to send it off, in which case we need creatures that do eat. But I guess they're what's lava gain its source from? Would they gain their source from sunlight? Like they're like their plants, they're one with the plants.
Maybe, because keep in mind they're not just lava; they are also water.
Yeah.
So,
Are they actually just giant plants, but
I
made
don't
out of
think
molten
they're
rock?
giant plants.
Well,
Plus,
I mean,
that would be a
I
different
mean,
element.
well, I mean in the sense that they're almost more plant-like than the plant monster. Whenever we get to them,
I think that these guys, I think that they would.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they would eat. Would they eat? They're like obsidian, so they're like basically rock, water, and lava, which is just heated rock. So if they would eat anything, I don't think they'd eat plants.
I'm not sure they would eat. I think it's a matter they just kind of live, kind of like a volcano does, and eventually they run out and they just stop living. We need the idea of how they make more of themselves, because I'm not sure they reproduce in the human way.
Oh,
Cause,
maybe they one spews out water, the other spews out lava, and then comes an obsidian golem baby.
Is that what we're going? I'm not.
I don't know.
Because they can't really spew out lava; they just are, which is why they have to die to
So
fertilize.
they cut their arm.
To make new life.
I guess. I don't know.
Okay, so let's get even more morbid then, in the sense. Okay, so say they live on their island. Maybe the island actually has like a volcano on it. And so something they do when their person dies, they take out the heart, quotation marks about whatever that is, and they throw it into the volcano, and a new
It's
life.
a diamond.
Whatever it is, and a new golem is formed out of that heart, and then the body is just made into fertilizer.
Yeah, I like that. And the heart is a diamond because diamonds
Pressure,
and
heat,
lava
yeah,
and pressure, it works.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then these diamonds hold their magic. So this is if you want to kill one of the golems, you just have to get, like, you could cut off their limbs and they can just reinsert it back on and stuff like that. But if you separate the diamond out of them, then they're done. Like, there's no coming back once the diamond's out.
Yeah, like, I think that is like, if their limb comes off, it's like, oh, it's lava, just melt it back together.
Yeah, I agree. But once the diamond is out of their body's just done, and you can't reinsert it. You have to go and make new life. And this is new life. Like, once the diamond's reused, but the soul of the last person's not in that diamond. Like, a new soul is created via the diamond. Like a heart transplant.
Okay. And these, water, I'm wondering how much, like, this could be something that we could build for all of the different creatures. What kind of, like, how does the water work? Like, how much water do they have in them? Do they have an infinite amount? Does it come from somewhere? Do they drink a whole bunch, store it in their stomachs, and then spew it out?
I'm pretty sure we're leaning towards this is a magic system based world. This isn't a science. This is all magic.
Yeah.
So I do believe part of that, the diamond gives them this ability, is that it produces the water. So when you actually look at the diamond, it's almost looks like it has an ocean inside of it. So it has that weird effect.
Oh, maybe it's connected to the ocean.
That could be it. That's actually a really good idea. So what they spew is salt water.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, is salt water good to douse plants with?
Probably not. I put salt in my weed killer, so...
Okay, refresh. It is connected to the underwater lakes, which makes more sense for a volcano anyways, because they're connected to the underground.
Okay,
and those are fresh water. So
so they were connected to underwater lakes, then.
So actually, the diamond almost looks dark and shady, and yet there's, like, hints of blue in it. So it's like a shadowy, almost looks like a shadowy ocean, but it's actually underwater lakes, and that's where it drops. And there's so much water in the underwater lakes, like, they could spew forever, and that'd be good.
Okay, so that's where the water comes from, then.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That works.
Problem
and
solved.
I imagine they don't eat, but maybe they, because it's the circle of life, they just like plants, and they like farming, but then they say, while we're at it, let's trade or sell our goods to other people. But what would they want? What would a lava obsidian golem want?
They would want
gardening tools.
Yeah. They need specialized tools that don't burn when you touch them.
That's just fully metal.
Yeah, and they're not gonna have the ability to get that stuff. They're not miners. They are farmers. They would also need materials to build their houses and stuff to make it fit for them, and also not burn and stuff like that. Entertainment. These guys might like a good show and performances and stuff, so they might have traveling groups come. They might be the type of people where they have this huge party every now and then, and they invite neighboring elemental groups, and each elemental group performs, and how well they perform is how much food they get. And this could become a huge thing for all the societies, which...
Oh, so everybody just comes for the food, and the golems are just making the food for entertainment.
Yeah. And you have this huge... Now we have a world element. You have this huge competition, maybe like once a year, twice a year, in which all of the different tribes come to compete for their food.
I mean, this is a strange competition, because it's like, how many people really want to compete for the food when they have the option of harvesting their own food? And I imagine they do, because food doesn't generally last the whole year.
True.
Unless it's rice.
I mean, or it could be we have humans in this world, and they live amongst these giant elemental people, and that might be something. I don't know. Or it could just be a fun thing they do, and they know these guys have these crops they don't need, and so they just participate for fun, and they get food out of it for bonus. Like
Yeah,
it's like
maybe.
the Olympics. Imagine the Olympics, but instead of a gold medal, you get a carrot.
I like it.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay, so I think we've spent a little too much time on this one elemental
I mean, it's
guy.
the first one, so you gotta get a system going.
It sort of lays down the foundation for the others. Okay, so then how about
The ice fire.
light ice fire? Well,
We
we already
mentioned
have yeah. So ice fire.
Yeah, we mentioned them, like.
So what do these guys look like? So we got golems.
I don't know. I'm imagining a very like cold crystallized thing, but there's like a red inside of them. You know, like they reflect red. So kind of
What
like
kind of shape are they?
that's a good question. Maybe we should think about
'Cause-
what it is they do. Like what's their purpose in life?
Well, they are ice and they spew fire. So are they metal workers?
I'm not sure how well ice
Yeah,
would
because
work
like
as
fire,
like ham-
sure, but ice
is pretty
probably not.
brittle. So they
Well,
have
what would you have that you would heat up and cool down, or vice versa, really quickly?
that's I mean that's still metalworking, I guess.
Like, I know this is a thing that people use for stuff. What?
I mean,
What
you
do you
use
do
it.
with
You
it?
use
Other-
it for metalwork too, because you'd heat up the metal and then you cool it down really fast so it keeps the shape. So maybe they are metal workers and their ice is just really tough. Which
Yeah, I mean, is extremely. I guess you could say it's just really compact, strong ice.
we could say it's unmeltable ice.
Oh yeah, it's just
It's permafrost,
cle-
like Olaf.
yeah. Just don't try and lick this ice. You will not break free.
Okay, well, I don't think that they'd have that problem, or else they'd have a lot of things sticking to them, and that could be an issue.
This
But-
is what happens when it's like as the school bus goes for a tour of this of their little island or wherever they live, and it's like, all right, kids, and here is the ice people, and then they go and just start sticking their. This guy gets a bunch of kids with their tongues stuck to his leg, and now he's walking around with them stuck there forever.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's a thing. I do like the idea of metalworking is growing on me because they could have their forges and they could heat up these metal and shape it and stuff, and then they kind of just hug the whatever they're making and it keeps its form. And the idea of hugging a weapon to make it just appeals to me on so many levels. It's like, look, we made these tools with love. We hug them to cool them off.
I love it. Ooh,
Uh,
what if you can melt this ice, but it must be broken from the creature?
Oh, so they could break it off if they need to, and well, yeah. So I guess for these guys, what happens is they can't afford to lose their ice because when they do, you can't reattach. They can't reattach limbs.
You can't freeze more ice on?
Yeah, once your ice is gone, you're done. So you have to be
Well,
somewhat
what if,
careful.
I
about
imagine
that.
they do. I imagine even though it's unmeltable, they still live in a cold climate just because theme.
Yeah, of course.
So if they do live in a climate that's below freezing, then what are the chances that they could still freeze a new shape of like a limb onto them, and so they have very lifelike prosthetics?
Yeah, I'm for that. It
Yeah,
just
like you would never know that it's a prosthetic unless like you just notice that they can't bend their toes or whatever.
or
they have.
also that if it heats up, it melts. Like they can't take it into the forge.
Yeah, we still haven't come up with what these guys look like, because for some reason there are two things that are popping into my mind. One is a dragon, which makes sense because fire breathing, and the other is for some reason a deer. Just a
I mean-
fire breathing deer, ice deer.
Well, we could kind of combine these things, and we could have go more lizards. So, but they stand up on 2 feet and they just have antlers.
Okay, so lizard, and then I think they would need opposable thumbs if they're uh, metalworking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that would make sense. Also, I think an interesting idea to help them when they do lose limbs and stuff is like antlers, like deer. Wow, like deer, their antlers constantly grow, and they are able to break those off and quickly attach them to themselves to create like fingers at least, or like little things. Like
That
they could slowly
seems kind
rebuild
of
their.
weird.
Well, it is a little. Well, they're allowed to have weird traits.
Okay, so it's like a weird way of being able to regrow limbs so you don't need the prosthetics.
Yeah. So, but it could
Okay.
be very slow at times because you have to break it
And
off
this
and
could be
quickly
how they
reattach.
reproduce.
I had that thought, but I was wondering if that'd be a little weird. I
Well,
mean,
I mean, how else do you expect these guys to reproduce? I mean, you just introduced a way that they can grow life
I
limbs,
yeah,
like usable like flesh and stuff from their bodies.
this actually could be like a really good ceremony where they only create life once a year, and so every year they all come together and they shave off their antlers completely, and everyone participates to create and brings it together to create this new life, which means that each of these guys might be actually different shapes and sizes because they can look different depending on how they're built. So you could have competitions where they are trying to design the next year's life, and they're all like making things. And the only thing that, and then I guess they would put them into the forge, and then they would come out
Oh,
with the forge soul inside of them, and they come out with little baby antlers, and that's how you know they're alive.
okay. And what I'm thinking is that this way you wouldn't actually have like lizard, like people with antlers. You'd have like, I imagine all kinds of different shapes and different types of creatures designed each time because maybe it's whatever is most important to the culture at that time. People are going to try and emulate and make a new life out of.
They
So
spent
you
they
could
spent
actually
so
have
much,
your
yeah,
dragon over here and your deer over here.
yeah, but they all have antlers because they need those to participate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also how they get the fire soul inside them because they're born in the forge.
Is the forge like this endless, like eternal burning uh forge within ice or
Yeah,
something?
yeah, I think it's a magic element, and they each get their fire for their own. I mean, they don't need the fire for themselves because they can produce their own fire for forges. So it could just be like this thing they've created where they all blow into it and
Yeah,
light it,
I'm
and
I'm
then they put it
imagining
in.
this. I'm imagining a gigantic fire, and they would call it something like the Forge of Life,
Yeah,
and the and
it's lit once a year, and that's to create the new one. Which
yeah.
also, I think they're very cycle, so I think they have a set number, and each year someone also passes away. Like they have a set life years, and then I don't know what happened. I guess the other one kind of wanders off and goes and melts and allows himself to melt, like gives way.
Ooh, here's an idea. That could this could make for some interesting story elements. What if the forge can is while it is the thing that creates the life for these ice creatures, it is also the only thing that can melt them.
Oh, and maybe, and this could honestly, it could be a theme for all these creatures. Actually, is that it like the golems need the diamonds to be reproduced again. These guys need to reuse the spire soul, so they put in the one who's ready to die, says his goodbyes, waves whatever hand it happens to have that from that year, and then is put in the furnace first, and then the new one is put in after, and the soul transfers, and then new life is created that way.
Well, I just realized we've got a problem.
What?
What if some eventually these different races will all die off because they have no way to exceed their current population? If one dies somewhere far off or like falls to the ocean, drowns, or whatever, there's no way to get that soul or that diamond or anything,
And
and so they
this,
need a way to create new ones.
so this is where the central island comes, and this is the keeper of the elemental souls. It is the keeper of the lost souls, and elementals can go and retrieve lost souls from this
It's
building.
the Avatar.
Well, no. I was thinking more the Tooth Fairy with their little memory teeth things, and each one has one, and you can go and collect them when you
That's
need
a
them.
little different from the
Just yeah,
Avatar.
that was more where I was thinking. And this way, if a soul is lost, it just means that someone is elected to take the trip to the Central Island, which could be a good story in itself. Like having to go. For one, this creature might be they probably make it someone who is close to the original one, just because they'd be the more willing to want to go retrieve that soul. They'll probably be more likely to volunteer. So, like, if your brother's soul was lost, you'd probably be more willing to want to go and fetch it to create a new life than if you were just a stranger.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine these guys could like make like the diamond, and maybe they have a way of making the diamonds that the golems have. Uh, but but the Central Island, they're the only ones that can make them.
Yeah. So, what creature would be the keepers of the Central Island?
Yeah, I feel like it would need to be something
Okay, here's an idea.
almost.
For their element, not what they're made out of, but what they produce. I almost think would have to be spirit, because they create the souls. So their element is the soul, like spirits. So they can literally create life. And these guys are eternal. They just don't die. Which means they probably have a soul, are built out of... What's like the opposite of the soul?
I don't know if there is one other than maybe body.
So would they look human then?
Maybe, hold on.
Are you Googling it?
Yes, what is the opposite of a soul? Soul antonyms, soullessness,
Emptiness.
irrationality.
Oh, here's the thing. They don't have any form. They're just emptiness. You don't see them, you don't hear them, and yet they're
callousness.
There. You're not listening.
Yeah, I am half listening. Like, like they're empty. You don't hear them. You don't
see. They don't have a form. They just every now and then a soul is produced, and it's them.
Okay, so how do they do that? Do they just puke it up, or wave their hands and?
I mean, they don't have
poof?
hands.
So they're just completely bodiless, and they just exist, and they do stuff, and people know that they exist because these souls are coming from somewhere.
Yeah, and they just assume that, and they know that the opposite of the soul is nothingness, and this is the land of opposites. So logically, they're just made out of nothingness, and from it, everything is created. And before people are like, that makes no sense and it's confusing, just think about how the world was created and leave me alone.
So, what else could we have? What other elements?
Well, we were talking about lightning, which is a fun ability in itself. So what would lightning be put inside? Because lightning is... I don't think lightning's the body.
Yeah, the thing that I thought about, like, as an opposite immediately was ground, but I don't know if that's really the opposite of lightning, or if it goes well. Like, I thought of lightning and wind and clouds going well together, but those aren't really opposites. Those are just...
I mean, they're needed.
Things that...
Yeah, a cloud produces. Yes. So...
So, what would it be?
I mean, I guess the ground kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it does seem kind of boring.
Yeah, it sounds much more boring, but I think that it makes more sense. So let's go with the non-boring option, which is clouds.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll have... And these guys, they could fly.
Okay, so I'm imagining these guys as the puffs that we made.
Yeah, I was honestly thinking like these are shapeshifters. They can shoot lightning, but they're more intelligent, and we need to give them more of a purpose than being pets. So
yeah. So what can these guys do? What would their purpose be? I mean, they shoot lightning. Do they control the weather?
I was about to say, instead of doing lightning, do we want to do weather in itself as one, and then Earth actually as the body, and then that's kind of actually interesting. Is you've got these grounded creatures, but they produce weather. Like they can't fly, they can't go into the sky, but they can put things into it.
So like maybe the ice and fire creatures could make snow and maybe rain.
Or I guess, or maybe these creatures just produce clouds, and then these clouds can go about and they'll gather moisture and turn into rain and snow and stuff. Almost like without these creatures, there'd be no clouds. So they
Okay.
go about and they make clouds all day. That's what they do. But they're grounded. So so where they would live, I'm kind of actually thinking like a valley that's extremely foggy and cloudy. And then every now and then you just see giant ones pop out and then start heading off in all different directions and just spread over the world.
Okay. We could also do it like on a mountaintop, or have it be a city of clouds in the sky.
I feel like as Earth, like based on Earth, they wouldn't like being on the clouds, but maybe mountain works. It's very cliche to have your weather people live on a mountain.
Yeah.
So I thought the valley could be
valley.
fun, because just watching clouds pop out of the ground and then go off. And that way they're embracing their Earth side a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise you're of course going to get the other cliche, if they're in the sky or on the mountains, where they are either going to think that they are on top of the world and above everybody else and be very stuck up, or they're going to be a bunch of Buddhist monks.
Yeah. But now we just have, I don't know what they would be, but they're in the ground, they're living their life, and I also think what's important for this world is actually that it's a smaller one. So that way it makes sense that this one group can produce the clouds for the entire world. So this isn't Earth size. I think this planet is smaller than Earth. I'm trying to think like what's a good size for all these guys to live in, because
I think the size will kind of work itself out.
True.
When you start telling the story and everything.
It also depends on how many different tribes you want and stuff, because like right now we have 4. So, if you have more and what story you want to tell and you want your journeys to be longer and stuff, just keep in mind whatever you're doing, we have these cloud people and they got to be able to cover. Unless this might be the one group where there's multiple tribes and they're spread out is another option.
Yeah, that would actually be interesting, because like okay, now we're creating air nomads. So the yeah, I like the idea of them being spread out, where there's just smaller colonies of them, rather than all the clouds in the world coming from one central location. There would be multiple spread out all over the place.
Yeah, it definitely makes more sense that way, and they just have smaller colonies, while these other elemental groups have large city type, or they cover a full island and stuff. Or they have a whole, like, ice biome city and stuff like that. These guys they have, like, little villages and things, and maybe they're one of the more common ones, and in which case, maybe their central city is the one that's in the chasm, and just over there it's really stormy, and it's just a stormy area because of these guys, which could mean that you have an elemental there that likes that type of weather, and then they have their smaller little outreaches everywhere, which could mean that these guys might be the messengers of the world. Like they can cloud write, like you just see messages going through, like the cloud writing's a thing for big messages.
Yeah, I guess
big ones.
They'd be very large public messages.
Yeah, things like
so there's no privacy when you're sending your mail.
Well, what I was more like thinking maybe big things like proposals might happen. Well, I don't think any of these guys propose yet. It doesn't seem they're leaning that way. But I was thinking more like if, say, a group was in trouble or something, these guys are the watch out and they inform all the other tribes that something's wrong is happening. Say, for example, say the volcano actually erupts. The first people you want to tell that is the cloud guy, who could tell everyone else, and they can get people in to help and evacuate the island because they're stuck on the island. So you got people who can come in and help all of our water lava people off the island and let the volcano erupt, and then they can go back and start replanting because it's not going to phase them that much. But
okay, there is
stuff like that.
One small issue.
Yes.
Depending on how far apart everything is, clouds are slow.
So, we might need a mix tribe where it's a mix of two tribes in these little colonies, and one of them produces wind. And what would that be made out of? Are they both Earth-based, actually? Would it make sense to have,
wouldn't have an opposite?
I don't know. Would it make sense, actually, to have, like, these two Earth-based... They're both made out of Earth. Like, they're from the dirt. And they've connected really well, but they have just two separate abilities. One produces clouds and one produces wind. But they merge really well and work together pretty well to help spread weather and stuff.
Okay, so how about we have like men born with the ability to produce clouds, women born with the ability to produce wind, and
they reproduce normally and have normal lifespans and stuff. But you need both.
So are these just humans then?
I don't know. I feel like humans are really out of place in this world. I'm thinking maybe they could look kind of human-like because that's where we're going at, but their skin it looks soily. Like, it looks like someone took a nosedive. It just swam in dirt for hours, and it crusted over and stuff, and that's what they look like.
Okay, to make them slightly less human, we'll give them 6 fingers.
Sure. But still, yeah, that works. I'm good with that. And then maybe, having more plant-like, like green-colored hair and eyes and stuff. Just to represent, like, plant life and things. And they just have different shades of green across the spectrum. And there's rare shades of green, and people make a big point about, like, what color green eyes you get and stuff. You know, the things that creatures do.
Now, is this going to be the kind of society... Wait. Okay, so since we have them divided amongst... So, like, there's different locations for these cloud and wind people all over the place. Now, originally, what I was thinking was... if you have, like, the two different genders one creating wind, one creating clouds, you could, from there, you might end up creating, like, different types of gender roles in the society, because that exists in almost every society.
And especially
But if they're all divided, like, into different little colonies, they could probably have different colonies who have different gender roles and see things differently. For example, one might value the ability to create clouds over wind, while a different one is the complete opposite and values wind over the ability to create clouds. And then you have a story when two different people from two different colonies meet each other, where it's like one grew up where it's like the ability to create clouds is better, therefore men have a higher position in society, while the other one said, like, no, women and wind are better. And then they go and they meet this third person from a different color, where it's like, what are you talking about? This doesn't matter at all. Like,
we need each other. What are you two doing? Why are we having this conversation?
Then you have another one over here who's like, you guys create wind and clouds?
We just don't really do much because we live in the desert society and we're only allowed to use our ability if there's an emergency. That'd be sad, but yeah, it makes sense. Like, if you have like a sand society, you need a village of these people there because they're the messengers and they need to be able to tell it. But at the same time, they would be forbidden to use their ability because they would kill an entire society or ruin the lives of an entire society of whatever the sand creatures do.
Okay, so on that note, let's world build the sand creatures.
Alright, I think this will be our last one though, so let's finish off on the sand creatures, just because I think they'd be a good plot line for our cloud wind people.
Okay.
So, what is the opposite of sand? And would they be producing sand, or I guess we'll decide when we find out what the opposite of sand is.
Cactus?
Cactus? Or is
solid
plant?
Rock? Hold on.
Back to Google.
What is the opposite of sand? Near antonymous for sand.
What?
Wait, what is coarsen?
I don't know. Click it.
It just means scruff or scuff. That's not an opposite. What is the opposite word of sand? Cowardice.
um,
Apparently the opposite of sand is cowardice and fearfulness.
I disagree. I don't think sand
This
is
is from
brave.
Word Hippo.
I don't think sand is naturally brave.
Okay, so what if we did something similar to like what we did with the clouds, where it's not the opposite, but it's something that goes hand in hand with sand? So what
like
goes
sunlight?
sand is a what?
Like sunlight? Like they just can produce eternal day?
Maybe.
Which is why they live in the desert, because they're made out of sand and
Well, if
also
we're going to world build like the day people, we need to world build the night people.
and they're in constant battle. Is that what
They could either be in constant battle, constant harmony, or they just don't care about each other at all.
they ignore each other? I'm not sure if that fits well with this world, to be honest. Just because we already have like some big overarching themes of this with the soul keepers and these cloud people that unite and like warn people, and they're all very close together, these societies. And I don't know, I feel like having two societies at constant war with each other doesn't really fit what this world is going for. I think it's an idea that if someone else wants to play with, then they should go for it, and it's a good one to have out there. But for the world we're building now, I'm not sure that fits. So maybe they just produce heat. They're like a sand people that can heat things up. I have no clue. I'm at a loss here.
So I don't know how would they heat things up? We've already got a fire element.
I know. Honestly,
Okay, I
there
think
aren't
that
too many
daylight might be a better option, and then we've got the nighttime people, and then we could just say that they work in harmony, or alternatively, we could sort of create sort of like maybe some an outline for a plot where these day and night people are at constant war, but then in the process they somehow cut off the supply, or somehow froze, or just by some means stopped the soul people from creating more souls.
Oh.
So when one dies, people start realizing, hey, no, these guys aren't getting replaced. Where are the souls? And it takes them a while to realize, to figure this out, that these two people that are at war have somehow canceled the Soul Keeper's ability. Now, how would day and night people do that, is the question.
I mean, I guess when you're maybe they rely on like the balance of the day and night cycle, and maybe at the beginning when all of the souls were created and these voidless people created them, and somehow, I don't know how they did it, but I guess they created the soul so they can instill a purpose inside the soul if they want to. Instilled in these new souls the idea that this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're supposed to do, this, and together you live in harmony. And the idea was that the night and day would work together, so you have the desert day people, and they would habit day for their allotted time, and then they would surrender to the night people, and they would keep balance in that way.
You just gave me an idea for like a whole backstory for this entire world.
Okay.
Okay, so the Soul Keepers, at the beginning there was void, but then the Soul Keepers said, we shall create
they
a
don't
world.
speak, just saying.
What?
They can't talk.
Okay, so the Soul Keeper said,
Well, they can't really hum. It's more like a thought.
The Soul Keeper's thought.
There we go.
Whoosh. And then they created the world. They first created the golems to tend to the lands.
Mm-hmm.
And then they created the ice and fire creatures. We don't have a name for a lot of these people. We just have the golems. Anyway, so they created the ice the creatures to bring about
Technology and tools and help
temperature
people.
control, I guess.
No, they're tool
they
creators.
help
They don't really
advance
do
society with their metalworking.
Yeah.
They created the what else do we have? The cloud people to manage
Bring
the weather.
Yep.
Yeah, and so then they created the night and day people to keep 9 day in balance, and everything was going great, and they were all living together like mixed. They weren't off on their separate islands or anything. But then they ran into trouble where they were struggling to live with each other, where the maybe it just by the presence of the ice people walking by could end up freezing over the crops that the golems are creating. They're not too happy about this. Golems walk in and they start melting the non-indestructible or unmeltable ice that homes that these ice creatures have.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And then eventually maybe they started they had maybe like minor feuds or something, and they eventually just separated themselves and started living in separate areas. But then afterwards they managed to calm down, they started getting along, but the day and night keepers didn't let go of their grudges towards each other, and they kept on fighting back and forth for control over day and night. Maybe one is trying to keep it nighttime all the time, one is trying to keep daytime, and they, while they aren't in harmony, they are in constant conflict and are somewhat balanced. But then one day the scales are completely tipped, and that is what triggers the inability for the souls to continue creating, or the soul keepers to continue creating more souls.
Because,
now the only question is, what?
Well, I was about to say it makes sense almost that the soul keepers need perfect balance to work, because what they are creating are creatures of balance. So you can't create creatures of balance if you feel unbalanced yourself.
Yes. And so, because one side has gained too much power, suddenly there are no more souls being created.
And
now it's up to these people to convince either the day or the night,
preferably
to release preferably both, to relinquish like the power that they have, and they'll say, no, if we do that, then the other side will get too much power.
Yeah. And it's
or maybe that even does happen, where it's like they say, no, we don't want to do that, and then they'll force them into it. Like they'll say, fine, we'll just overthrow whatever your source of power is. And they take down, and then suddenly the scales have tipped, and the other side has too much power. And they're like, oh, well, now we have a problem. Now we have the exact opposite problem of what we had before.
Yeah. It used to be dark all the time, and now it's daylight all the time. And having it one way or the other definitely affects each people group. So like if you have it day all the time, ice starts to melt, and that could be a problem because there's more heat and stuff of that. But if you have it night all the time, plants can't grow, and that's a problem for them. So you need both for different groups to function.
You definitely need the balance.
Which also means that I almost feel like because of that, some of the groups might ally with one or the other. Like you would have the plant people being okay with it being all day, all the time. And then you have the ice people who are like, no, actually having it all night sounds good to me. And so they'll ally themselves with the night.
Okay, I imagine the
cloud people would want balance.
Okay, and we need like types of creatures for the for the day and night. For the day, for some reason, I imagined flaming gazelles.
You and your deer today. My goodness.
I mean, gazelles aren't deer. I mean, the next thing that came into my mind was phoenix.
Yeah, I was thinking bird-like for some reason, and then for I'm trying to think like maybe I like ravens.
Raven for nighttime, maybe.
Yeah. I know, comparing a phoenix to a raven, it's kind of
okay,
sad.
So the phoenix would obviously seem far more powerful. But what if the ravens came with the ability to maybe bring smoke or clouds of shadow wherever they went?
So they're shadow white ravens.
Yeah,
which
like
means
maybe
they could be
blot
bigger and they
out
can
the
be
sun.
smaller and stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe what it is they have the ability to blot out the sun. Like, and that's what the nighttime is. Like they fly over the sky, and wherever they're flying, they leave a trail of darkness, and it's what the and that's where the sky becomes dark, and maybe there's little twinkling magic sparkles and dust in their maybe left over from the light, and those are what the stars are.
And then
So
this
it would
is
be
just a
very
world without a
starry night.
moon. Yeah, it's just a world without
Yeah,
a moon,
and
which I think is fine, considering.
and then the phoenixes, they'll fly over
And they'll burn it
and
away,
they leave
pretty
a
much.
trail of light and sunlight wherever they go.
So there is no sun or moon. There's just day and night, but because it's produced by them. So we don't have a sun and moon in this world, which I think is an interesting idea. Because even most fantasy worlds are so sold on the idea of having a sun and a moon, and now we have this fantasy world doesn't have either. It just has these birds constantly competing over over it's which almost means like at some point you might have a mix, like there's spots of daylight and spots of darkness, and it's just a mess. And so at some point you're walking and you're like, I can see it, oh, I can't see every, oh, I can see every, oh, I can't see, and it's not great. It's frustrating. They're ready for peace.
Yeah. Now, question: do we want to world build like how they would suddenly gain power to like overpower each other?
I think due to
Or
time, we're gonna have to save that for the viewers to come up with.
okay, so they found. So we'll say they found something, maybe ancient gauntlet or goblins or something, an ancient magical golden bird bath that increases their power tenfold.
Yeah, or it could just be a means of they partnered up with whatever golem group, and especially I can imagine the ice ones wanting eternal night would then create something that would amplify the raven's powers, and then once the lava people realize what's happening, they might find a way to harness the power of their volcano to amplify the sun.
Yeah,
The
now
day
keep in
creatures.
mind, you could add in a whole lot more creatures, and I think this world should have more creatures.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We just don't have the time to world build them.
We have under an hour. There's we're not going to create a whole world of them, but I think we have a good base and a kind of a good idea, and we also have a good like background of the world and like the main conflict of the world, and also we have a lot of mini small stories you could do between like these earth people and their clouds and being different groups, or the idea of the quest for receiving a new soul when a soul is lost is another interesting one, and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
I mean, I think there's a lot of potential subplots, like the things you're just listing. But your A plot, your primary plot, could be the conflict between the ravens and the phoenixes.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to end
And
it.
I just like ever since the beginning of this, like when we started coming up with more creatures, I was thinking to myself, okay, gotta find a way to make it so that these creatures all feel like they are in the same world, like they all work together in some way, rather than just tacking on a bunch of different locations and cool gimmicks and stuff. Trying to figure out how to make them all unified and work together. And then you said the thing earlier, I don't even remember what it was, but it gave me the idea for the history of the world, and then that brought everything together, and it works so well.
Yeah, and
What you said triggered it, but I don't remember what you said that triggered it.
I don't know either. I'm just glad it did, and I'm glad I personally started feeling it was unified once the nothingness soul creators started coming in, and they started adding some unity as well, and I'm happy, but we have run out of time, and so we are gonna have to say goodbye and not spend 20 minutes on an outro.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye.
I feel these elements illuminate my soul. I don't remember any of the other lyrics.
It's good enough.